Thank you so much for your patience. It is 7:05, and we're going to go ahead and call the June 14th regular planning meeting to order. We are absent one member today, so I'd like to seat an alternate, and I believe that it's Brian's kind of turn in the rotation here. So Brian, if you're willing and able to come up and join us. And don't sit, because we'll go ahead and do the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you so much. We're going to do just a quick roll call. Nicole, if you want to start us off and everyone can just introduce themselves.
Nicole Davison.
Richard Gordon.
Kirk Scott.
Michelle Williams.
Tom Fitting.
Brian Bombeck.
Excellent. Okay. Are there any additions to the agenda tonight? No? Okay. Our next item is public delegations. We do have a public hearing today, so this portion, public delegations, is a time when community members can come up and speak to us about items not on the agenda. You can't speak about open applications or speak toward our upcoming public hearing. But if there's anything else that anybody wanted to speak to us about tonight, you are welcome to do that. The commission can't directly answer your questions during public delegations. Do we have anyone here who is wanting to speak during public delegations? All right, seeing none. Let's head into reports. Gary, do we have any communications today?
No, don't have communications.
Okay. Who was our zoning representative for the last meeting?
I had the agenda.
We don't, could have been Jason.
Yeah, might have been.
Could have been me.
I think it was Jason.
Okay. No report on that tonight. And I see our ex officio, Mr. Weber's here. Any report from you tonight?
No, we're doing mostly procedural things. I think the one thing that is interesting to most people right now is we're trying to put together a plan for the charter revision, if we're going to do a charter revision. So there'll be questions coming out soon and looking for volunteers.
Excellent. Any questions for our ex officio? All right. Mr. Geishel, update from the planning director.
Don't have much, although I did attend last week at the Niantic Bar Association at the Mark House in Hartford. They had their seminar on land use law, so I hand up to you, pass them down. It's a copy of their handouts, basically what they were speaking on, teaching us significant recent case law that affects what we are. If we approve that in leisure, if you have any questions, let me know. If I can't answer them, I will pass them on.
Awesome. Thank you. Just want to be clear, I have the agenda on here, so if you see me looking at my phone, that's what I'm doing. Next up on the agenda is updates from our subcommittees. I will go ahead and take the one for Plan of Conservation and Development. We did just meet before this meeting to talk about our strategy moving forward, how we're going to stay in touch with the other boards and commissions to track, as we've discussed, the recommendations in the plan. And Gary's going to help us send out some correspondence so that other boards and commissions are welcome to attend our upcoming meetings and give us their feedback, updates, let us know how we can help. So that will be going on in the next month or so.
Yes.
Yeah, all right. And Kirk, you want to go ahead with affordable housing?
The affordable, we met recently and discussed there was two applicants that wanted to go for the revision for the plan, Gorman and York, and the other one was SLG, and we did select Gorman and York. Gary's been in contact with them a bunch recently, and they just got the contract signed, so that's gonna start the process for that revision. We're gonna meet on Monday the 20th
Correct.
for the kickoff for that effort, and there'll be a regular meeting.
Meeting agenda posted.
Yeah.
Just a kickoff meeting with the consultant. That's how we're going to move forward. Just as some background for the rest of the commission, pursuant to statute and some recent changes, we were to have the plan completed by June 1st, 2022. We submitted correspondence to OBM pursuant to the statute indicating that that was not going to happen and the reasons why that didn't happen. And we also gave them a date of December 31st, 2022, when we would, by which we would submit a completed plan. That said, we also had to request an extension of the grant to complete the affordable housing plan. That was also approved and completed in the last month. So we've been working diligently getting those things in order. Primarily, it's a result of COVID. We lost 4 months there, and we're getting that on the backside. So we're excited to move forward and we'll get that off our desk.
Great. Thank you both.
Thanks.
All right, moving on to the minutes of our May 10th meeting. Do I hear a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Rich. Any discussion on the minutes?
There was one typo. There was like an extra T on the second page, but I didn't see anything of consequence other than a typo.
Okay,
Just
I'll make that note. All in favor of approving the minutes, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions?
Aye.
Okay, so we have 601, right? What, 501?
501.
Okay. Moving on to public hearings. I'm just going to go ahead and read this into the record officially here. This is a public hearing for the application of Kristen T. Clark, P.E., of Niantic Real Estate LLC owner. This is an application for a 2-lot re-subdivision of approximately 5.13 acres of land zoned RU40, located at 9 Upper Kensington Drive, East Lyme, Assessors Map 40.0, Lot 17, with a waiver request from Section 23(5)(b)(1) of the Town of East Lyme zoning regulations, Section 6-8-7 stormwater management requirements, Section 5.2.2G erosion and sedimentation control requirements, and Section 5-2-2B and C preliminary resource impact and conservation plan. The date of receipt of this application was May 10th, 2022. We'll make sure that everyone who is here and would like to speak will get a chance, but I think first we typically lend the floor to the applicant.
Good evening, Madam Chairman, Commission members. My name is Paul Garrity. I represent Kristen Clark, who is the engineer on this project, and also English Harbor Asset Management, which is the applicant for this, along with Ms. Clark. Madam Chair, at the get-go, I would just like to address some housekeeping matters and not actually open the public hearing, and I'll explain why. Attorney Carey, who is the Commission's attorney, and I have been going back and forth for the past week and extensively today regarding an issue that has been raised as to whether the owner is either the applicant or processing this application, the owner being Niantic Realty. If we look at the agenda, and there's one item I'd like to correct on the agenda too, it indicates that Kristen Clark of Niantic Real Estate LLC. Kristen Clark is not a member of Niantic Real Estate LLC. She's a member of English Harbor Asset Management. And Robert Blatt is the sole member of Niantic Real Estate. And the only reason that Niantic appears on the application filed by Ms. Clark is because your regulations require the consent of the owner in order for someone to make an application before this commission. And so they signed off on that. There is a letter that it should be part of the application, but I'll submit it to Mr. Gaishel tonight too, so it's part of the record that indicates that Ms. Clark and English Harbor Asset Management, as the contract purchaser, are authorized to proceed and make an application for their subdivision or re-subdivision of the property. I would also like to introduce a letter that I sent to Attorney Carey on May 26, 2022, regarding the issue of whether or not Niantic Real Estate is an applicant in this process and would be barred under the terms of the settlement agreement with the town. It's our position that taking such a view is an attempt to expand the terms of the settlement agreement. The settlement agreement clearly states that Ms. Clark and/or independent third-party purchasers, and the emphasis there is on purchasers, may apply for application and permits on property owned by Niantic Real Estate or New England National. So my concern about opening the hearing tonight is we start the clock ticking both for this commission but also for the applicant. And until Attorney Carey and I come to an accord or a lack thereof on this, I don't want the clock on the application running. The other reason I would ask that it be continued to next month before we open the public hearing is we got staff comments from Mr. Gaishel and Mr. Close, which we are in the process of addressing, relating to some changes that they wanted. Also, Ledgelight had asked that we do some additional septic testing. We recently got the results of those tests back and Ledgelight's comments on that. So we're going to have to possibly, and I haven't spoken with Ms. Clark about what she thinks needs to be done, but we may have to redesign some of the septic areas. And so my thought would be that we do it all, once we resolve the issue as to whether or not New England National is even part of this process other than having to sign the application, we would then be able to go forward strictly with the actual application itself in that regard. And I think in light of the email that I received after my conversation with Attorney Carey today, we're going to need to have some further discussions on the issue of the fact that Niantic is not part of this application process. It's simply the owner and required to sign the application that Ms. Clark filed by virtue of the town's own regulations.
Right, okay, I hear where you're coming from. I just want to make sure that I get some clarity on this, though. You've just presented us with evidence about the application, right? Even though it's procedural.
Right, correct.
So my concern is that your testimony just now is public hearing material. So I'm looking to you, Gary, for some advice on this. I mean, so your concern is that if we open the public hearing tonight and continue the public hearing, and we do not close the public hearing tonight, and we continue it to the next meeting, that still will not allow you enough time because it starts that 65 days of open public hearing.
That's correct.
However, there's extension 35,
35.
but there are extensions available on that, right?
The applicant has
If the applicant
65 days extension time that they can grant the commission at any time, whether it be to open the public hearing, continue the public hearing, or render a decision.
Right, and I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut Mr. Gaishel off. And my concern, obviously, is that in light of the fact that we've had past applications with properties on behalf of, English Harbor has made application in the past and had those applications approved, even though the properties are owned either by Niantic or New England, this has all of a sudden reared its head and is becoming an issue. And if it requires going back to the federal court to get an interpretation as to that language, that's going to cause us significant delay. And I don't think that even extension times will be sufficient for the applicant to complete the process. And that's my concern.
So is your proposal then, if that happens, you'd be pulling your application and resubmitting? Because in that scenario that you just described, continuing and beginning next month doesn't really do much for you either.
I am hopeful that after looking at Attorney Carey's comments tonight, that I will be able to demonstrate to him that English Harbor and Ms. Clark are proper applicants to this and that this commission can hear this. If we can't, and we have to go back to court to get a ruling on that, then at this point, it'd be a little bit speculative to see how quickly. I'm not involved in the federal court matters. Mm-hmm. Attorney Novak is, but I don't know how quickly the federal court might act on that. I would be hopeful that since this is really, they'd be going back to get an interpretation of that, that it could be done in short order, because it's not a trial or anything like that's going to require discovery. It's going to ask the court, are we entitled to do this or not under the application?
Right.
So that we'd be able to do that. But in light of the fact that we are still making some changes to the application based on staff comments and Ledgelight's comments, my preference would be to save everything until we actually, to continue it to next month. Hopefully those issues would all be resolved, the plans will be revamped, and then we can go proceed with the hearing absent any being sidetracked by virtue of whether or not they're the appropriate applicant. And clearly, the public, I mean, this isn't something that necessarily involves the design aspects of it, which is generally what the public would be commenting on. But if the public wanted to discuss those issues or bring those issues before the commission, they'd be entitled to do so at the public hearing.
Next month. Right. So we have 65 days to open the public hearing from the May 10th application received. Then we have 35 days to hold the public hearing plus extension time.
And you have 65 days upon closing the public hearing to render a decision. The applicant has up to 65 days that they can grant the commission. They grant the commission
At any point.
at any point. So in this particular case, we could either open the public hearing and move to continue and have no further discussion. I think that's what I hear Mr. Garrity saying, although I just want to be clear, I thought I heard you say you didn't want to open the public hearing. So I think statutorily, though, we've already published notice.
Yeah.
We have to open and continue. The other option is to withdraw the application or resubmit, and we can discuss payment fees.
Well, I don't want to withdraw it because we're here, we're going to get those things done. So, but if it was tabled to next month, we would not object to that. And I think, assuming the issue of whether or not Niantic can be on the application by virtue of being the owner, that if we get that resolved, then frankly, from what I've seen of the staff comments, the dialogues I've had with staff, the design aspect of it and all should not be much of an issue at that point in time.
Right. So where I'm coming from here, what I'm concerned about is we've published notice of a public hearing. We've opened the public hearing for you to stand here. I don't think we can now say the public hearing is not open until, the public hearing is open now.
Right.
I mean, that's what we're
I
doing.
think at this point, you would just continue to the next regular schedule.
But that's not addressing what you just asked.
Well, no,
us to do.
I'm asking just to continue continue matters to the next hearing. I understand what the commission's issue is
Okay.
on that, and ultimately,
Okay.
this is a commission's decision, but I'm asking the commission to table it tonight, schedule it for commencement of the public hearing so that the clock starts running next month.
Okay. I would really like some feedback. Yeah.
So, we have a lot of people here tonight that came for this meeting.
Correct.
That's something that should be appreciated.
It is, I
Yeah.
understand.
Do we have all of the paperwork in order, other than this one question about whether or not Niantic, or which party is pulling or signing and the legal parts of it? Do we have everything else in place?
Well, we have all the other materials that were submitted in support of the application that are required, to the best of my knowledge, are there. We did ask the applicant to address some drainage concerns of the town engineer, which was basically to better present the material so that it was easier for the commission to understand. So we asked them to provide a supplemental drainage map of the site, so it can be better articulated as to exactly which way water is flowing.
Do we have?
In addition to that, I heard Greg indicate there's comments from the Ledgelight's Health District, which I have not yet received. I know he's got a copy, and in conversation with staff, we're reaching out to Ledgelight to see if we can get a copy from that.
My question really is, I mean, we have one deficiency here, or maybe it's not a deficiency. There's a question about whether or not we should proceed, and there's, comments about getting lawyers to agree on stuff. But aside from that, do we have enough to push this thing through tonight? If that were not the case, is everything else that's required be in place,
I would
That's
say
all.
that-
That was my only question. You're like,
You could move
yes or no?
forward, but I think at the end of the day, the commission's going to end up tabling the discussion to the next meeting to wait on
Right.
the
Right.
supplemental material that they're going to submit to support their position or to demonstrate that they meet the regulations based on comments from the legislature and the town.
Right, absolutely. I think is this what you're getting at? Can we allow these people to speak? And
Well, I mean-
because I hear what you're saying.
Everybody showed up.
Yeah.
You know, and there's still question about whether the applicant wants to proceed tonight. And it's just, you know, it might be unfair to some of these people who showed up if they were not allowed to speak or hear whatever. So what is the harm? What is the harm in having this discussion? I guess. Why would we not go? I mean, like.
Well, we're going to be making revisions to the plans and addressing comments. So we're not, until those revisions are in, and you can't, the commission would not be able to render a decision tonight anyway, because
Right.
Ledgelight hasn't.
But that's typical. That's typical. I mean, this happens often. I mean, you and us have been here
Oh,
many
yeah,
times.
many times.
So I think what we're saying is why is this public hearing on the agenda tonight if we're not ready to open it?
Well, we would have been when we filed the application. This was not an issue. This isn't the issue is to New England Niantic came up
Right.
about a week ago, where Attorney Carey contacted me and said,
Yeah.
"Hey, I don't think they can be on the application because," and we've
Right.
been going back and forth. And so we're like, wait a minute, this is, you know, we've been addressing staff comments. We submitted some additional information to that. Gary got back to us with some more comments from himself and from staff
Yep.
on that. Those we were in the process of addressing. We're in the process of addressing the Ledgelight. So what I couldn't present tonight is where the septics are, if we're going to have to relocate houses. I can only tell you that we're...
Absolutely.
we're-
I'm just thinking maybe a week ago when we learned this would have been a good time to delay the public hearing.
To request
Yeah.
postponement.
Yeah, yes, if the applicant is requesting it now. But now we've opened it. I mean, we're having it right now.
Correct. In that regard, even though it's having to be published, you still have to get this meeting tabling, I think, that discussion or indicating that the public hearing is getting postponed.
All right, well, we've received evidence now, so we're in
Just
it.
go. I think we just move on. Start through
So
the list
we'll
of
plan
stuff.
to hear about the application now or at the next meeting
Be
if
at the
you'd
next
like
meeting,
to.
because I don't want to get into describing what we're doing and
Totally
then come
fine.
back in 30 days and say, guess what? In light of staff
Understood.
comments and Ledgelight, we've changed the whole application process.
Understood, I understand. So if that's it for your comments, I'd like to invite anyone else who
All
is here.
right, so
to
can
comment.
I just have the letter to Attorney Carey, which I'd like to make part of the record. The authorization for English Harbor and Kristen Clark to pursue an application. And then with regard to the open space, a survey map showing the open space area that has just recently, and along with a quitclaim deed from Niantic Real Estate to the East Lyme Land Trust of the open space that would be required of this particular project or
Okay.
subdivision.
Thank you.
And with that, I'll conclude my remarks unless the commission has anything else for me.
Appreciate it. I know this is not ideal, but.
Sir?
Okay, moving on. Did anyone else want to speak during this public hearing? We would just ask that you head on up to the mic, introduce yourself with your address for the record, and say what you need to say. Okay. Going once, going twice. Looks like it was a non-issue. So do I hear a motion to continue this public hearing to our regularly scheduled July meeting? So moved. Anyone want a second?
Second motion.
Thank you, Tom. All in favor of continuing the public hearing to next month, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. Any abstentions? Okay. 5 in favor, 1 opposed. I'm heading back to open up the agenda. We will not be moving on to item 7, which is discussion and decision on this subdivision. Any zoning referrals this week? I see none. I see no municipal referrals. And we do have some old business. 2 of items B and C we have already covered, but item A, review of subdivision regulation revisions. Gary, I thought you might have an update on this.
Yeah, so as some of you may know, we do have an intern working in land use, which is fantastic. Kristen, she's assisting with both wetlands and planning, just as I do. That said, she and I are going to start sitting down with town staff and kind of combing through the regs of all the notes that I've made over the years. And what is interesting to note, in 2008, when I came on board, the town adopted some stormwater regulations. At the time, they were kind of cutting edge. And then in 2011 was the last time that there was a comprehensive update of the subdivision regulations to create this conservation development design regs. And now we're in 2022, 10 years later, and I think it's just time we take a look to see how well we're doing. Are they doing what we intended them to do? And how well are they working? It was of interest to note, we can also look at the economy at that time as well, to kind of compare what was going on. Because the majority of the subdivisions that we experienced over the last 10 years were less than 20 lots. We only had 1 application, and that was 7 years ago. At this point, that was 23 lots. So just kind of keeping that in mind as this, what was the volume or the area of open space that was created as a result of all those subdivisions. And did that really achieve what, did we achieve what we were going for in the conservation development design? So we're starting to look at that, and we'll put together kind of a list of various sections that we think need some updating, and then we'll bring that forward to the commission for discussion and consideration. So we're starting to move forward, so happy about that.
Thank you. Okay. We do not have any new business tonight, which brings us to adjournment. Would anyone like to make a motion?
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Nicole.
Second.
Thank you, Brian. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? All right. Thank you very much.